$5 off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan, and you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at SaveWithConrad.com.
We are broadcasting from the Blue Chew Studios. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. Hello and welcome to Grilling JR. This is Paul Bromwell, and I'm joined by the majestic voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. JR,
Majestic.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm wound up, man. I'm glad to see you, buddy.
You're drinking Diet Mountain Dew or what?
No, actually a little Diet iced tea this week. So there you go.
All right. Well, good. Good.
I've missed you, my friend.
It's been hectic with all the stuff going on and the Nashville scene and all that good stuff. You know, I know everybody's busier than hell, busier than a fruit merchant. So it's been a busy time for Conrad's crew and all you guys.
And you had your appearance in New Jersey. How was that weekend?
It was good. It was good. We had to battle rain. And we did it outside. It was hot. But other than that, you know, it was just fine. Yeah. Had a good crowd. Good folks came to see us, and it was treated well. Good promotion's good there. Good. So it was all good. You know, it's just made it a long weekend, but I was home for one day, then I left again. That's kind of what happens. That's why I don't take too many appearances. You know, it's just hard to package everything in and stay on schedule and all these things. So in any event, so life has been good. You know, AEW, we've been number one on cable for, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's pretty damn good. You know, number one show on cable. So, you know, we're doing all right. You know, we got a lot of big things coming up, as you well know. So everything's all eyes are pointed on Chicago, and that's going to be something special for all of us.
Man, you're not kidding. CM Punk running in last week now. It's been over a week coming out, running down the aisle, and the place exploded. You guys got to be pumped for what that means. Yeah,
it was great. You know, I knew he was in the building. I saw him briefly earlier in the day, but, you know, in the trainer's room getting some attention for him. And so, you know, he sure has been missed. There's no doubt about it. I think the crowd's reaction would indicate the same. They're ready to see him. I still don't know how healthy the guy is. You know, I asked on air even, has he been cleared to wrestle? And nobody knew. So I don't know when. I know he will be cleared, and I know that he's under good doctor's care. This process has been ongoing. So he's still in the process of healing, as far as I'm concerned. Until I get word that he's 100%, I'm going to play it by ear. What else you do?
Yeah,
you know. But if he's a tough guy, Punk's a tough guy. Everybody wants to see him and Moxley beat the shit out of each other, and you can count your bottom dollar. That's what they're going to do. They both have that pride and all that. It's going to be arguably the biggest main event we've ever had, and considering all the ramifications going in and injuries and all these things. So I'm excited about calling that match. I think it's going to be fun as hell. And, you know, it's being in Chicago 3 or 4 days, you know, I get my Gibson's meal and Gibson's steak. I'll probably be hitting the Gibson's in Rosemont.
Okay.
Because we're not staying downtown where the other Gibson's I go to is. And then I'm going to, coming up soon after, trying to think, Raphael Morphy and I are going to go to, after the TVs this week, we're going to spend a day in Cooperstown. So I have never been to Cooperstown. Raphael's been there a few times. He's a big baseball guy, and his little boy's a prodigy. There's no doubt about that. He's 8. He's a phenomenal. He really is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll do that. And I like, if you're going to be bivouac for 3 or 4 days in the city, Chicago's not a bad one to select. And Paul, it also is a a good time of the year to be in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you don't expect freezing rain or sleet, snow, and things like that. So, but things are good. The wrestling business is good. The wrestling business is very, very interesting right now. There's a lot of things going on, and so it's all in my world. We're still having a lot of fun. So, and I'm trying to get healed here. You know, I tried new medicines. My doctor's really working hard to get me back on my feet, so to speak. No pun intended. Okay. So, you know, just takes time and patience. I don't have I think I have time. I hope I have time, but I don't have a lot of patience.
A lot of patience. That's right.
So we'll see how it works out, but I'm excited about it. And this should be a fun show. I remember a lot about this show, and it was a good success for Smoky Mountain. It was a successful weekend for them, and a big show scenario that Cornette has put together. And just, you know, hell, he worked on that card all summer. So, and it was a good show, as we will see and talk about. It's a real good show. So, I'm anxious to get started with it and go back. I haven't seen any clip or any frame of video since I did the show.
Okay.
So it's all new to me again. So it's going to be kind of cool.
That's exactly how we like it, JR. And listen, first of all, so good to hear that they're continuing to try to work with you, find the right medicine, find the right remedy for your leg, man. So just continued encouragement from us, from all your fans and listeners.
Yep. Everybody's been great, Paul.
Good.
Really, everybody's been great. They've helped me, you know, in spirit. I'm better at healing than I am working this light thing, because you can see I look like I'm sitting in the shade. I don't know, I don't know how to fix it. So
it's okay. Listen, don't worry. To the majority of our listeners, listen to the show, so it's okay. We'll figure the light out later. Don't worry about it. Let's jump in, though. You said it, Smoky Mountain. We're going back to 94, August 13th. It's the night of the legends. And so I thought, JR, what we do is kind of level set for the audience, bring them up to speed, a little bit about Smoky Mountain. Not everybody may be familiar with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Jim Cornette formed Smoky Mountain, the promotion, in October of 91. He oversaw the company until it closed its doors in December of 95. Around that time, Jim would transition full-time into a role with WWF. But the promotion was based mostly in Knoxville, Tennessee. Their offices were in Morristown, Tennessee. And during their run, Jim had done a little cross-promotion. He worked with WCW in early 93. And then when he joined the WWF later that summer, he started a relationship with them. We've all known that Cornette's a wrestling traditionalist.
Right.
And he's catered to fans who still believed in good guys and bad guys. And, you know, cheating was still a reason to get upset. Bob Cottle, who was their play-by-play announcer on the TV program, he would also proclaim at the beginning of every show, JR, that Smoky Mountain Wrestling was professional wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. So, buddy, that's what we're here to talk about. We're going to watch that special episode where you make your debut for Smoky Mountain at the Night of Legends. It is August 13th, 94. And so if you want to watch along with us, you can absolutely do so. You can fire up Peacock. As with most of the footage, WWE owns it, so you're going to find it on Peacock. Look for Territories, look for Smoky Mountain, and you want to find Season 3, Episode 33. So if you want to go ahead and do that, pause the show. We're going to get started here shortly. But again, it's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Fire up Season 3, Episode 33. JR, I'm as excited about anything about Chili Sleep. If your body is rejecting sleep, Chili Sleep can fix it for you, because they make customizable sleep solutions that help improve your entire well-being. They make the Uller and Cube sleep systems. They're hydro-powered, temperature-controlled mattress toppers that fit over your existing mattress. And I'm telling you, man, it's going to provide the ideal sleep temperature for your body. These luxury mattress pads keep your bed at the perfect temperature for deep sleep, whether you sleep hot or cold. They're designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and give you the confidence and energy to power through your day. Listen, I don't know about you, but when I wake up, I want to feel refreshed and renewed, and Chili Sleep can make it happen. And for an extra layer of comfort, they also make the Chili Blanket. It's the only weighted blanket that can also be paired with a control unit for the ultimate sweat-free sleep. Isn't that right, JR?
Yeah, man. You know, folks, we got a great deal for you right now, too. Go to chillisleep.com/JR and to learn more. But here's a key piece of information you're not going to want to forget. You can save 30% off the purchase of any new Cube or Uller sleep system. This offer is available exclusively for Grill and JR listeners and only for a limited time. 30% off. You can't do it forever. That's Chilly, CHILL, sleep.com/JR to take advantage of our exclusive offer. It's a great discount. And you wake up feeling refreshed every day and not sweaty.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little bit about adfreeshows.com. People often ask me, what exactly is Ad Free Shows all about? Well, I'm glad you asked. Not only do you get early ad-free access to all of my podcasts starting at just $9, but you also get many of your other favorite wrestling podcasts like Click This with Kevin Nash, Gentleman Villain with William Regal, Oh You Didn't Know with Brian James, and others for, yes, still just $9 a month. That's 14 podcasts in total every single week, early with no ads. That's like 20 cents an episode. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or through your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Want some more cheese on that Whopper? AdFreeShows.com has literally tens of thousands of hours worth of bonus content, including fantastically popular series like Eric Fires Back, Idle Chase, and Strictly Business. And I don't know why this is a thing, but there's even more than 40 Ask Conrad episodes waiting for you at AdFreeShows.com. We've got monthly Zoom chats with all the podcast hosts, live watch-alongs with wrestling legends, and more. Come on now. See for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans have already discovered. That's adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling today. Check it out right now. Adfreeshows.com. You'll be glad you did.
And JR, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to play the music and also let the audio track a little bit, because we start right off the bat with you and Les Thatcher in the ring. This was taped at the Knoxville Civic Coliseum on August the 5th, and then it goes to you. So we're going to listen to a little bit of that. So let's go ahead and get started.
Let's roll. Looking forward to it. I look pretty good in the dark. This show's got a lot of Mid-South feel.
It does, doesn't it? Just the opener.
Yeah.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a night of legends. We are in the Knoxville Civic Coliseum, a capacity crowd on hand. I'm Jim Ross, and as a wrestling fan, I wouldn't have missed this event for the world. And I'm certainly honored to have a great wrestling legend, Les Thatcher, here with us tonight as my broadcast colleague. Les, this is going to be a very special night.
Jim, it certainly is, and as you're going to hear by the electricity in the air, this is the greatest night in Knoxville wrestling history. We're all happy, the fans and myself, to have you on the mic with us tonight for this momentous occasion. And without further adu, let's let it roll.
Let's let it roll. Let's get started. We'll be back with all the action in just a moment. Well,
there you go.
We wish we could bring you all of tonight's action, but since our TV time is limited, you're going to see some of the high points of the evening.
So let's go to the footage of the Legends tag match. Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr. take on Ronnie Garvin and the Mongolian Stomper, already in progress.
And the Mongolian Stomper.
All right, JR. So we'll mute it here. Then we're getting into the match, as he said, Ron Garvin. And man, here we go. Ron Garvin with the dark hair, no longer the blonde that we saw in WCW or NWA and the WWF.
Yeah.
This is the Night of Legends, buddy. Here we go.
Yeah. And of course, you can go back in the annals of Knoxville, the territory, and these guys in the ring right now they had amazing runs in Knoxville, and the fans certainly were excited to see them congregate again.
So, JR, as we watch this, there's quite a few things that I want to run down with you as far as what was going on at this period of time. What are your memories, first of all, of working with Les Thatcher on this night?
Oh, I loved it. Les is such a good guy. He's unselfish. He's always prepared. He was just a joy to work with. And Les and I have been friends for years and years. And he's got a great pedigree, done a lot of great things, territories, a lot of TV work. So I had nothing but praise for Les Thatcher.
So you're brought in here as just a guest announcer for this Night of the Legends show, as you were in the middle of your brief second WWF run that lasted from the end of June of '94 until the end of August of '94. So tell us, how'd you end up getting the gig for what was just, going to be a one-time only deal?
Well, I think Corny asked Vince. Vince approved it, and it was just a cool thing. For me, I didn't have to stop and think about it. I wanted to do the show, so it was fun. It was a fun deal, and I enjoy seeing all these guys that we're watching in the ring right now. It's just Slater and those guys are just legends, and they were big time legends in this marketplace. I'm trying to figure out who that damn referee is. I don't know who that is.
It's Mac. I think Mac Murray maybe is his name. It is, Mac McMurray.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yep, Mac McMurray.
There's the Mongolian Stomper, at one time one of the most feared competitors in the pro wrestling business. Of course, Ronnie Garvin was a former NWA champion.
JR, around this time frame, I want to ask you about this because it's out there, made the dirt sheets, as you would say. Uh-huh. You were fired for the second time from WWF at the end of August of '94. It was said because of some comments that you made in an interview with Wade Keller from the PW Torch that took place when you were not working for the WWF, but it was printed. And when you went back to, working there, so you started full time with Smoky Mountain in October of '94 and worked there for about 3 months. And then Vince calls you back and says, "Hey, we're ready to bring you back to work." Do you remember any of this at that point?
Oh yeah. Look, I knew I wasn't going to be gone long, and the word getting fired it's a term. I knew that somewhere along the way I'd land on my feet. I think the cream rises to the top. I wasn't too tore up about it because I thought that I would be back working for Vince at some point in time. Vince and I never had any major blow-ups or any issues on during this time. He and I got along fine. We had philosophical differences, and I had a big mouth, and sometimes I said things that didn't set well corporately. But other than that, Vince and I never had any major issues. So I knew that our relationship was strong, even though I got canned there a couple of times, maybe more. I don't know. But I kind of got used to it. I kind of got used to getting my pink slip. But it's humbling. But I don't know what I would do over. The interview I did with Wade Keller I wasn't even employed by WWE. I wasn't employed by anybody. I was off, and so I don't even remember what I said in the interview. I don't think it was anything too destructive.
And honestly, now, JR, doing podcasts, you're in the perfect place for having that big mouth. You can say whatever you want. You can get red ass. I mean, it doesn't get any better. So
there you go. Well, that's the name of the game. Isn't it great to see Bob Orton? You see shades of his son Randy.
Oh, so much in the face too.
And Bob and
he's
Randy.
in good shape here. Look at him. He's lean.
Yeah. Bob, he was a hell of a worker. Just an amazing worker. Randy comes about naturally. I remember one time going to a show when I was doing working in the summertime as a young guy, and in Muskogee at a steel yard, and we were taking away these airplane parts and bringing the scrap metal back to Oklahoma. And we went to a wrestling show, and I think it was in I'm not sure if it was in Fort Worth or if it was in Dallas, but nonetheless, it was a loser leave town match, and Bob Orton Sr. was in the match, and my buddies and I got there, to go to the show, and I noticed that one of the competitors parked in where the wrestlers parked, and they were pulling a trailer, which is a pretty good indication they're losing. So they brought their trailer and everything. I didn't have much confidence in the game plan that night, I guess. But in any event, that's the one thing I remembered about that. And I know Fritz had a real good relationship with Bob Orton Sr. They've been around each other for years. And but I had never seen a loser leave town happen with one of the trailers already loaded, getting ready to head out of town. You know, you got to save that $10 that day for a hotel room, so they were on their way to something else.
And you know what's interesting here, JR? Orton and Slater, who they were a top team in the Southeast in the late 70s, and some regarded them as one of the best tag teams in the world at one point.
Oh, no doubt.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. Well, they were just smooth and experienced. They knew each other well.
And then you see Ron Garvin here, and my goodness, we just saw him not too long ago at StarCast, and this is 1994, still getting it done in the ring.
Yeah, Bob used to. All those guys in this ring are really good. I mean, they had long careers and still had some fundamental skills that Cornette put them on first because he knew that he wasn't going to. These same four guys probably weren't going to be booked together very frequently. So they started the show, as I recall, and it was a good way to get the show started with wrestlers that the audience knew, especially the older fans. But this has been a very basic match.
Yep.
And Mongolian Stomper Archie Goldie
going in there.
Here's one thing about Archie. Archie was always known for his amazing cardio conditioning. I mean, his reputation as a guy that, could go all night long is pretty well known.
And here we go. The boot has been introduced. The referee is going to make a call. JR, as we get to the wrap of this match, I was going to share some notes from the Observer around the Smoky Mountain. This promotion, this is from Dave, which has been struggling of late at the box office, is expected to break its all-time record attendance and gate for this August 5th, Night of the Legends in Knoxville. The show is a variation of the Slamboree theme, the idea which actually was even more successful on a regional basis for a similar show earlier this year in Memphis than it had been for WCW, since that area had its own regional stars pre-WWF expansion of '84 that fans remember better than the stars from different territories brought into territories they didn't regularly work in, as WCW did with Slamboree. The situation is somewhat different in Memphis, as the city's Monday Night Wrestling tradition has gone unbroken, almost going back to the origination of mankind. In Knoxville, promoter Jim Cornette is tracing back local wrestling history through numerous different promotions dating back to the late 1960s. When did you first hear about Smoky? Were you surprised your friend James E. Cornette would start a wrestling promotion?
My. Well, no. What else is he going to do? I mean, he's a wrestling guy.
Yeah.
And there I am in the ring.
I don't think we're going to do this audio. I think this is going to be something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And actually, we'll just talk about it now because they're about to make their way down. Here we go. So I'm going to go to some notes that we have here. Another gamble, according to Meltzer, was the tag team of the Gangstas. They've already become controversial because they've made an impact on Jim's territory, entering the ring with their own security system. The duo of New Jack and Mustafa Saeed paint X on their foreheads of the wrestlers they beat. And on a recent interview, JR, that hasn't aired on television yet, this is all from Dave, mentioned how glad they were that Martin Luther King was killed. The Johnson City station ran a disclaimer over the weekend over their interview and bleeped out where they talked about putting the Reginald Denny on the White Boys. The station in Tampa has already threatened cancellation of the show over the recent interviews. For years, there's been debate on how far is too far in wrestling. Some have tried to argue that there should be no limits. JR, what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I thought sometimes obviously these guys worked hard, and they didn't have a problem getting heat. They didn't have a problem being the hated villains. They kind of embraced it, quite frankly. So But I thought was it politically correct? Obviously not. It was the wrong kind of heat, in my view. But, guys got a right to make a living, and that was a persona that they were trying to perfect. And, but I would not have booked it. And I understand why Corny booked it, and I get it, but it was just, I thought the wrong kind of heat. But, that's just one guy's opinion.
I'm going to kind of read through the notes from the Observer on what's actually going down in here in the ring. JR, you're in the middle of the ring. For those that are just listening to the audio, the Gangsters are in the ring, and you're talking to them, and New Jack and Mustafa, along with D'Lo Brown, by the way. He's the third man in the ring. And Ross said all their interviews would now have a disclaimer at the bottom of the screen, and that they would be fined if they went over the line. New Jack ran it on the crowd, saying they wanted to silence Martin Luther King in Arsenio Hall, and said if the fans didn't like it, then they could train to become a wrestler so he could defeat them. New Jack then said that, and the NAACP would ask how high if you told them to jump. Ross then asked who they were in SMW to face, with New Jack saying they had defeated down everyone they've come across, but haven't had a chance against Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, who said they had defeated the Road Warriors, Steiners, and Doom. Just overall, JR, you're standing there in the ring. All this is going on. Do you remember, hey, this is just uncomfortable?
Oh, well, a little bit, but not to the extreme level that I couldn't do my work.
Gotcha.
It's just the subject matter, the tone, and the tenor. Mustafa was a hell of a hand. And I've always been a backer of D'Lo Brown, former Maine Black Bear, defensive end. And D'Lo got his big break when we put him with the Nation of Domination. I always thought D'Lo never really achieved his potential. This big dude right here was a good hand too.
Yeah. So
there you see my normal. I can't believe I'm standing here.
Your scowl.
So, but that's, you gave the guys the mic time, and here's how they use it, and so off we go. So, it was just one of those things. It was uncomfortable, and it was supposed to be uncomfortable. We're down there in the deep South, there in Knoxville, and all those old wounds seem to be opening back up, and I don't know that was necessary.
Did you, or had Jim Cornette, did they make you aware of the backstory with the issues between the Gangstas and the television stations and all that? Like, were you aware prior to getting in the ring?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it was a hot button thing, and be careful, tread lightly, as we say. So I don't know why I was even talking. I guess just trying to get to another question.
Yeah, just this is all a build, and we're going to get to it by the end of the show with them and Rock and Roll Express. So that's what's going on in the ring now. But I want to kind of go back as we're still sharing this in the crowd, just to give a little bit more on what's going on here with this whole event. So I want to bring our fans up to speed. Jim Cornette did put together a fan fest, believe it or not, around this time, not far off of what StarCast has turned into, where 50 fans, JR, mostly readers from the Observer, that's right, would attend and travel the circuit and meet and greet the wrestlers of all people. Jim Cornette, who has yelled, screamed, cried at this point about wrestlers breaking kayfabe and all this, literally held a fan fest for Observer readers. Obviously, mostly from the internet. They came and traveled with the talent, and here he is all these years later. So Meltzer said Cornette coincided the event and a second major show in Johnson City, Tennessee the next night with Fan Week, in which 50 fans, predominantly readers of his publication, will be attending and traveling the circuit and having meetings set up with the wrestlers. I really wish I could have attended the first weekend, because based on last year, the group really did a tremendous job in making the readers enjoy themselves. The headline matches on the show are A Coward Waves the Flag match with Bob Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, and Road Warrior Hawk with Ron Wright in the corner against the Funks and Bruiser Bedlam with Cornette in the corner. You got Dirty White Boy versus Terry Gordy. How's that for the SMW title? You had Brian Lee and Chris Candido versus the Rock and Roll Express for the SMW tag titles, and the return of the Heavenly Bodies in a street fight against the Thrillseekers. Knoxville City Coliseum holds about 6,500 people, with the group's all-time record being 4,100 fans and roughly 3,950 paid for a show earlier this year. Jim, when you go to debut for SMW, what type of research do you do? Were you rewatching any of the shows at the time?
Well, when I could, yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, that their show aired locally in Atlanta, where I was living at the time, on Joe Pedicino's Channel 69. And so I got to keep up with it. And then you see it on online and things of that nature. Observer always carried it. I always have to tip my hat to Cornette because, he's a one-man band there. He was crazy. There's no telling how many Diet Sprites he drank that weekend, but I would say it was probably near a case. So there you see Brian Hildebrand, one of the referees.
It's the next matchup, buddy. Here they come, the Heavenly Bodies. And you got Jim Cornette there with Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey and our buddy, ad-free show buddy, Dr. Tom Pritchard. We can track this a little bit.
At this time, I take great pleasure in presenting the greatest tag team in the history of Knoxville wrestling. They are every mother's nightmare and every schoolgirl's dream. But tonight, the Thrillseekers are going to have the nightmare. The Doctor of Desire, Tom Pritchard, and the Gigolo, Jimmy Del Rey, they are the Heavenly Bodies.
Really good tag team. Tommy and Jimmy Del Rey, they're very skilled.
The greatest manager in professional wrestling today, Mr. Jim Cornette.
All right. We're good.
I don't know Cornette. Cornette's it's always who's the best manager ever. Cornette certainly is in that conversation. And so I was looking forward to this match. I knew it would be a real solid wrestling match and would be really good.
JR, one of the lines of the matches you were talking about Jim Cornette's outfit. And you asked, where'd he find that? At Liberace's garage sale? So I
use Liberace or Elton John for a lot of my material.
Elton John was another one you said later on after the Liberace. Same about his outfit again. You were using them all. It was great. But at one point, we're going to track this, by the way, once Jericho hits the outside of the ring. So right now they're showing, it looks like an old Pontiac Firebird or Trans Am coming out. But don't be fooled by what we're seeing at the entrance. Because you're going to see the Thrillseekers pop into the ring. There they are. It's Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, for those that aren't familiar with who the Thrillseekers are.
Another outstanding team, Paul.
My goodness, what a team.
And Jericho wrestled that match with a broken arm.
And we're going to talk about that. He sure did. He broke his arm earlier. They say for kayfabe reasons that he broke his arm in a car accident as you listen to this, but that's not at all the case what happened. But you will be so impressed to see how he works this match with one arm the entire time. Yeah,
things that Chris Jericho has done in his career are just now, I think, getting recognized to the level that they deserve. I don't know who the MVP of AEW would be today, but if we had a vote on it, I am telling you that Jericho will get plenty of traction. It's just amazing how he's done. And I saw a thing on Twitter the other day. He's having problems with his toes.
Yes, he put a picture of his toe out there.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Ugh,
it is ugly, I can tell you. So I was feeling bad. I have a lot of empathy for Chrissy, and
between his toe and your ankle, JR, I think we've all seen a little bit of everything in the last 6 months.
We've probably seen enough.
My God. Speaking of seeing enough, buddy, wait till you see this match, because not only does the poor guy have a broken forearm, but he ends up bleeding buckets. And I'm telling you, there's puddles all over the ring, all over the floor. The referee is soaked in it. Jericho just bleeds like I've never seen before in this match. So, man, he is a gamer. Look at him. Nothing but that one arm, that left arm, the whole time he's in the ring.
Yeah. Well, Jericho's old school guy. You know, he knew how big this event was for the territory. You know, he had that grit and that fortitude. And so I and Lance Storm complimented Chrissy so well. They're buddies from the Calgary days. So, and I always appreciated Lance Storm's work. Citizen Storm, I used to call him.
Okay.
Citizen Storm. But he's a hell of a hand. So, and I thought he had a great school there. I don't think he's doing the school any longer.
Now.
But he did. Lance had a real productive wrestling school.
The guy in that ring that does have a very productive wrestling school is Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tommy's done great. He's a great teacher, great coach.
That's one guy that, as I watched this card last night, I watched Dr. Tom and how he sold and the moves and transitioned. And I thought, man, you could see it in his technique then, how he could be such an excellent trainer to wrestlers.
Yeah, he had great product knowledge, felt the game. Right now, they're setting the stage. Cornette's getting frustrated because his duo is getting out wrestled.
So listen, the other thing I wanted to mention here as we're watching this match continue, this was also, as I mentioned, WWF, they're signing wrestlers from SMW after using them in this like talent exchange type deal. So the Heavenly Bodies have been there, Brian Lee. Did you like that? Do you think that worked? Did it make sense at the time, that working relationship?
I think anytime you can create new paydays with fresh money for talents, it's a good thing. And that's how I would judge that deal. Any of the guys coming in, you didn't know how long they were going to be there, but you knew that they're going to be paid well while they were. And I thought that's so. Anytime a guy you can create new money for a wrestler's family and the talents themselves, I think that's a good trade-off. The Citizen Storm is just he's a blessing. We never had a word of trouble with him. He didn't say much. Professional all the time. There's some
Beautiful.
Super kicks.
What a tag team. I'll read a few comments here from the Observer at the time. They said one idea after another continued to go out the window due to wrestlers leaving for no apparent reason. Wrestlers getting opportunities with major offices and leaving for obvious reasons, and inopportune injuries such as the one suffered this past week by Chris Jericho of the Thrillseekers, who suffered a broken forearm practicing the shooting star press in a ring before the show in Knoxville, but still worked the show against vehement doctor's orders. After the matches, JR, listen, he had 2 steel rods and 6 screws put into his forearm and will be out of the ring for about 6 weeks. Are you kidding me? 2 steel rods and 6 screws in his forearm, and he's out here wrestling this kind of match. You can't say enough good things about this guy.
No, he's a gamer. He's a gamer. And you can't get enough Chris Jericho's in your locker room. It's just no way. You wish you could, but that's not how it works. You only get a few of those talents occasionally, infrequently.
Yeah. I mean,
this match here, Paul, in my view, is would pass for today's standards.
Oh, absolutely.
This match we're watching right now on anybody's television show would be very, very palatable, very much a strong addition to the card.
Oh yeah. Give it to me on AEW. Give it to me on Ring of Honor. Give it to me on WWE. I mean, people are watching this through the commercial segments the whole way through. It's a very good tag match. And how underrated looking back at this, are the Heavenly Bodies?
Oh, they're, we said this a lot, Tom was the leader of that team, but don't discount anything that Jimmy Del Rey is going to bring to the table. Near fall, they were created by a nice double team.
We talked about the talent exchange just there for a minute. Who do you think was heading up that talent exchange at that time on the WWF side? Would that you working with it? Was it Bruce? Was it Briscoe? Do you remember back then?
I'm sure that Bruce had something to do with it, and not just because his brother Tom was in the mix. But I was involved, of course. But really, the whole thing started in Vince's office because we needed new faces and we needed new things, and all these guys could come in, and the Heavenly Bodies, for example, could work with any tag team that we had in WWE and do it successfully. They were very, very good. And the other thing that's really important to mention is the fact that they've been around, and the talents of WWE knew them. They trusted them. Trust is a big thing when you work with a new guy like that.
Sure.
Or a new team. So we had nobody have any issues with those guys. Well, I don't want to work with them. Whatever. So it was good. I thought it was a really nice arrangement. I wish we could have done it longer and more often.
Yeah, no, this is, I'm really enjoying seeing the work here. So JR, as we kind of watch this beautiful super kick, my goodness, by Jimmy Del Rey on the Landstorm. Guys, listen, if you don't want to watch this entire 45-minute presentation, go back and watch this match. This is the match to watch if we had to pick one. I can just tell you that right now. Cornette doing his Cornette thing with Brian Hildebrand there and making the hot tag there. I'm gonna ask a couple fan questions as we watch Dr. Tom come in. Rajiv says, was there anything you learned during your time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling that you still carry with you today?
Well, you try to learn something, Rajiv, on every outing. You never get too much knowledge, or you can't prepare it. You can't. I've never been in a situation where I over prepared. But it's all the basic fundamental things. Dot all the I's, across all the T's. Preparing. Cornette was good about that. He had outlined what he wanted, what he felt were tangible selling points.
Oh, Dr. Tom, don't do the top rope stuff, buddy.
Well, he tried, but
he tried
unsuccessfully.
Yeah. Christina has a question. She said, did you and Jim Cornette get along while working together in Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Yeah, we sure did. Corny and I have gotten along forever. He says Jim Cornette is a very intelligent and opinionated guy. He has amazing wrestling acumen. But just because I don't appreciate him knocking AEW so aggressively as he does.
Yeah.
I don't see the reason for that, but that's his call. He's got his own platform. He's got his own audio thing going on, and I hope and I'm sure he does well. I hope so. But yeah, Corny hasn't changed. He hasn't changed. He's not any different today than he was when I first met him in Mid-South Wrestling.
Josh, go ahead.
He's a controversial guy.
Let's go to the audio here. I want to hear JR on the call.
And smacked off the steel. I'm not going to be surprised if this kid is not busted open here.
Look, he's going again with it.
Oh. And he's right in front of us. And this guy, you can see it. He's bleeding profusely.
He has split him
open.
Cornette.
The referee didn't see that. Cornette got him with the racket, and Pritchard got him with the right hand.
He is in trouble now, Jim. Serious trouble. They have got him lacerated bad.
He is bleeding and bleeding profusely. And now it will be perhaps just a matter of time until this young man with a broken arm and a lacerated head cannot continue anymore.
And you talk about a story. Look at what we... Oh.
And this one is not for the weak at heart. I can tell you that.
Del Rey was ripping at that cut, trying to get it. And of course, the faster he loses that blood, the weaker he's going to get, Jim. And that's what they're counting on.
Absolutely, Les. Absolutely. Very good point. Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Oh, yeah, Cornette saying he's going to know now what it's like to pay the price. We've got that picture. This kid is paying the price right here. And I don't know how much longer the referee should let this one go on, quite frankly. This kid can't defend himself, Les.
I'm going to tell you what, win or lose this one, I want to shake his hand tonight in that dressing room, Jim. This is quite a stirring moment for this young man.
That's part of the, somebody's going to get over, somebody's going to go over.
With all the heart and determination.
See, I didn't know the finish of this match.
Okay, I was wondering if you knew.
I had no idea.
Continually pounding away.
So you just call what you see on the monitor and tell the story that seems to fit the actions.
On his feet, I can't believe it.
So we were putting Jericho over enough that if Jericho and Lance Storm lost the match, we have taken good care of him.
I'm telling you, if you're not go back and watch this. He is just a mess.
Pritchard is tough.
Cornette's got a cheap shot.
Right.
Cornette should be ashamed of himself. What a dastardly attack by James.
This is classic Jim Ross on the call.
Young Chris Jericho.
Jericho's face is a mask of blood at this point.
And he's a setting duck.
You'll have to go back when you see him at AEW and be like, buddy, I went back and watched you in '94. This is incredible.
I'm sure he's always been great. He just seems to be getting greater and greater, and he's such an asset to AEW. He's he does. You'd be amazed, and maybe you wouldn't. But Jericho shows a tremendous amount of unselfishness. He spends time with the guys in AEW. And I've been in territories and companies where that wasn't always the case. So, but Chris he's a team guy. He wants to play it forward, and I respect the hell out of him for that.
Knee drop, right to the face.
We can go ahead and stop tracking it here, but it is just, yeah. So the beat down is on, and obviously people can see this, but they said those that were there said he bled more than the famous Hase Muta matches. That's how bad the blood shed on that night.
Well, he got plenty of color. There's no doubt about that.
We're going to see it here, JR, but the referee is going to stop the match on blood, but Jericho begs for it to continue.
Yeah.
And he's going to end up pinning Jimmy Del Rey with a roll up. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. But this is a keeper. This is one for the one to check out for sure.
This is a match where one of the reasons that matches like this, Paul, are successful is because all four talents are on the same page. They all understand why they are here. They understand what they're doing, and they have respect for their adversaries and their partner. So I'm a big believer that the pre-match cooperation and communication is imperative. And obviously these guys work in small territories. They were four of the very best workers in the entire territory. And it just, all the stars are aligned.
There it is. They were turning Jericho's head into ground beef. Jimmy Del Rey. Yeah, let's play this.
Saying that the Thrillseekers can't continue. Once again, referee Mark Curtis has stopped this match.
I'm going to tell you what, Jim.
This kid doesn't want to quit.
No.
He's literally begging the referee not to do this.
They're going to restart the match.
We're going to restart the match.
What the hell?
I can't believe the courage. This kid's career could be on its last legs.
This is a no territory finish.
He wants to restart it. Oh, wait.
I'm going to sell tickets for next week.
Oh, my
God.
They won it.
Can you believe it?
The Thrillseekers have defeated the Heavenly Bodies.
And your winner, ladies and gentlemen, the Thrillseekers.
Isn't that ring announcer classic?
He's classic, all right.
Yeah.
These young men, this alone, they are the champions of the world.
I have never seen any athlete in any wrestling ring take the punishment and the pounding. And
are you surprised Cornette had the Thrill-Seekers go over, even with Jericho's injury to his arm?
Nothing Cornette does surprises me, Paul.
Okay.
It was the finish that they looked like they were going to do, stopping the match, would have worked.
Yeah,
it would have worked. But they go the other way and throw a little curveball there, a little all-speed pitch. I thought it was very timely and very good. Of course, Cornette's bitching and raising hell. And
yeah, going after the referee here, and referee's going back at him and telling him what happened. And then Cornette's going to stomp around like a baby. Watch him.
Yeah, he's upset.
Classic Jim Cornette.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I don't know who the best manager of all time is. Bobby Heenan's in line for that accolade. Now, what are we talking
Smoky
about?
Mountain Wrestling Tag Team title with Tammy Finch handcuffed to Ricky Gibson. Yes, so let's join the Rock and Roll Express battling Brian Lee and Chris Candido in the closing moments of the match. And here's a double team. Again, Ricky Morton.
All right, we can, you just real quick before we move on from the Thrillseekers. JR, any idea why they may not have gotten a peek or a look, or maybe they did by the WWF back then?
Oh, I think it wasn't long before they both got hired. Yeah, they were bound for the 203 area code.
Yeah, and I'm talking Jericho and Storm.
You're right, I know. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Jericho, golly, he comes in and his debut that night with The Rock in Chicago was pretty
Eventually,
epic.
he was there. But, I mean, back at this time, though, just as a tag team, this is what, early 90s, as we're watching this, man, you could already see what he could be. Maybe it was a size thing. I don't know.
That was the whole issue.
Yeah.
When I hired Chris to come to work at WWE, that was some of his the dissidents. That was their case. That was their whole court case. He's under 6 feet tall. A guy like Austin's not going to work with him. Wrong. Triple H's not going to work with him. Wrong.
Yeah.
He was so gifted.
Well, buddy, we joined the Rock and Roll Express with Brian Lee and Chris Candido. We got Les Thatcher here.
The tape from last night in Knoxville, the Night of Legends, where the Rock and Roll Express regained their Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles from the tandem of Chris Candido and Brian Lee. The titles were again on the line here tonight, and also on the line, the hair of Ricky Morton and also the hair of Tammy Fitch.
Wow.
The match was exciting, but there were a couple of unexpected turns, so let's take a look. As Morton drops, his head goes up.
All right, we're going to join this one in progress. Let me read a recap from the Observer. So we had the Rock and Roll Express. They regained the tag belts. They would lose and regain again over the next 3 days in a match with Lee and Candido. In this match, Tammy Fitch was handcuffed to Ricky Gibson. We just saw that. Lee even worked a spot with a police officer who got a big pop, shoving Lee down. Candido accidentally hit Lee with a leap from the top rope, and Morton scored the pin on Lee. After the match, Fitch and Candido blamed Lee for the loss, and Fitch even slapped Lee. Lee grabbed Fitch, but Candido separated the two of them, and Lee walked out on his own, flipping the two of them off. Meltzer will give it 3 3/4 stars. But, man, look at the talent in this ring, JR. It's just a shame that Chris just isn't with us during this whole wrestling renaissance. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, you're right. He would have loved it. Lifers, and Candido was a lifer. He's a lifelong fan. He started young. He got good training. He nobody loved pro wrestling anymore that I've ever met than Chris Candido.
So here we are. We're in the Johnson City, Tennessee, as Thatcher just threw it to this match. This is the day after the biggest success ever, according to Meltzer. His bait-and-switch tactics and major stipulation matches backfired during a Rock and Roll Express versus Brian Lee and Chris Candido match. This is the one we're watching, JR, where it was heavily and effectively promoted that either Ricky Morton's hair or Tammy Fitch's hair would be shaved bald, depending upon who won the match. The end result was one of the biggest gates ever in Johnson City, but neither lost their hair. Since Cornette started the territory a few years ago, most of his biggest houses have been draws thanks to either or stipulation matches. So you have either one person leaves town or another. Either one person gets stripped or another. Either one person loses their hair or another. Either one person or team has to leave the territory forever or the other. While these matches have usually drawn well, the problem is that in several instances in the past, either or has resulted in neither. While Stan Lane left town, never to return after losing a loser will never wrestle in this territory again match, Bob Armstrong didn't. While the Heavenly Bodies left the promotion after losing the team, the team is done for good in SMW match, they did work an angle for them to return. So lots going on here. Cornette's promoter has long held out the belief that if the heel loses the either-or match, then the stipulation must be enforced. His belief has been if the face loses, since the fans really don't want to see the face leave town or get embarrassed in some way, that if the face gets screwed, you don't have to honor the stipulation because the fans are happy it doesn't happen. That game was played one time too many on August 6th at Fire on the Mountain 1994 in Johnson City, which drew one of the larger crowds and gates SMW has done, 1,800 fans paying $15,000. The either-or title match saw the Gangstas do a run-in while the ref was distracted, and Saeed ran Morton's head into New Jack's head, and Candido pinned Morton to regain the titles. This is what we're watching here. The crowd was initially shocked since nobody believed Morton would ever lose his hair. That's what we just saw him sitting in the ring. Unfortunately, they were right. Morton argued and asked the crowd if he should get his hair cut. The belief was since Morton had been screwed, and since he is the most popular wrestler in the territory, and since Johnson City is the city's that he's most popular in, that the crowd reaction to it was a lock. Why it wasn't, one can only speculate, other than fans had seen too many either-ors become neithers and were upset, believing it was planned to happen again. While the younger girls in the crowd screamed for Morton not to submit to the haircut, they were quickly drowned out by the majority, who even began to chant for Morton to get his head shaved. They stalled for minutes. Morton finally got in a chair, and then as the planned scenario, sprung out of the chair and attacked Lee and Candido, including a double drop kick on Candido. Morton got 3 or 4 swipes with the scissors on Candido, which we just saw JR before he fled.
Right.
Yeah, here we go. Morton's cutting a promo here. Let's listen to it.
Hair went flying. But what I'm here to talk about is you gangsters. Oh yeah, brother. You're the one that started it, and the Rock and Roll's gonna be the one to finish it. Now you come out here telling the whole world that the Rock and Roll Express is dead. Well, brother, let me tell you, Rock and Roll is always gonna be alive. You're gonna see things that you've never seen before in your life. Because gangsters, you come out here and talk about how tough and how bad you are, but you couldn't whoop half of us with our other half helping you. We don't care what it takes, brother. Anytime the match goes, brother, any place, we're coming for you, gangsters, and you're going down.
I'll tell you something, Les, what a night we have seen here. New Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champions, Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, have done it again.
That's right, and of course that great effort by the Thrillseekers in their match against the Heavenly Bodies.
Les, I can't tell you what a great thrill it has been for me to be here in Knoxville and a part of this wonderful Night of Legends.
And Jim, for myself and all the fans in East Tennessee and Knoxville, thank you for bringing your expertise, your professionalism to the play-by-play. I've enjoyed working with you. And for those of you out there who watch us on videotape who couldn't be here in person, we thank you, and stay tuned to Smoky Mountain Wrestling because the best is yet to come.
So long, everybody.
That's it, JR. That's it. JR, reliability is so important in life. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to my automobile, getting to where I need to go on time and without a hiccup is paramount. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And that, my friends, is where CarShield provides the solution. They make it easy and affordable to protect your car from expensive repairs. I know because they've been there for me. And that's just for starters. CarShield is the #1 auto protection company in the U.S. Did you hear me? #1.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, no, #1, JR. And they offer protection plans for around $100 a month. That covers more parts than ever before, whether your car has 5,000 miles or 150,000 miles. Let me tell you how simple it is to get your car fixed. When you need a repair, you choose the mechanic, and CarShield's administrators handle the rest. It's that easy. You don't have to deal with the paperwork or headaches. You're taken care of. Same goes if your car breaks down and you're stuck on the side of the road. Nobody wants that. Plans through CarShield also include coast-to-coast roadside assistance. Their administrators are there for you with rental car options and trip reimbursements at no extra cost. It's too good to be true. Get coverage today, and you'll lock in your price now, and it'll never go up. That means as long as you own your car, no matter how old it is, you're protected from the rising costs of parts and repairs for your vehicle. Isn't that right, JR?
Yeah, and you don't want to get surprised in a negative way. I like surprises, but I don't like negative surprises. And that's what you get. At least, all the red light comes on. Something, now you're wondering how much can I get to the next service station? Can I get to the next, mechanics joint? And it helps you save your money, man. It helps you save your money. And I think that's very important. Car repairs are are terrible.
The worst.
They're expensive, and the parts that are necessary to make your vehicle efficient are expensive, but not with CarShield. Go to carshield.com/podcast to start your plan and to lock in your pricing forever. And forever, ladies and gents, is a long time. That's carshield.com/podcast. A deductible may apply.
Woo Wings, a virtual restaurant concept from the man himself, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Enjoy the legendary flavors and world championship wings by ordering with your Uber Eats or Postmates app. Woo Wings is now open in Nashville, San Antonio, Jacksonville, Florida, as well as Huntsville and Tuscaloosa in Alabama, with many more locations coming soon. Try the only chicken wings worthy of carrying the name of the 16-time world heavyweight champion. Tell him, Nate.
Wings! Legendary flavors, world championship wings. Woo! Woo Wings! Yeah! Woo woo!
So what did you think about everything I was reading about that either or stipulation, and not kind of getting to what the fans wanted to see with the hair?
Well, anytime you don't give the fans what you advertise, you're flirting with disaster.
Yeah,
that's not a new concept. It's not a new theory. It's just been that way forever.
Right.
It's like going to the movies. You buy a ticket for movie A, and when you get your seat, it's movie B. You can't do that. I know that's a very elementary illustration, but you just can't jack around with your audience. So you got to deliver what you advertise. I think that's extremely important. And like you said earlier, maybe Corny did it one time too many.
Yeah. Well, listen, a thing I think is fun to note as well, by the way, we talked about talent sharing. Primetime Brian Lee, as he was here with Candido, this was also around the time that he was portraying The Undertaker.
Right.
WWF, and SummerSlam was about to take place on August 29th, which was that whole Taker versus Taker deal.
Right. Yeah. That was a good break for Brian, because I know that he and Taker were buddies from the territory days. And Taker lived in Knoxville for a good while. It was an interesting thing to see Brian get a break. And I thought he did well in that SummerSlam match. The angle of the presentation may have not been the greatest idea. That's arguable. But he got a break there, and he earned himself a hell of a payday. And, it didn't click and get over with Vince, or we would have seen more of it. But that was not the case.
And it explains why he wasn't the one getting his hair clipped at all. So there you go.
Yeah.
So listen, from Knoxville, not shown on the 1 hour TV show, honored in a 30-minute ceremony were announcer wrestler Les Thatcher, announcer Phil Rainey, deceased announcer Jim Hess, referees Tommy Weathers, Mac McMurray, who we saw in that opening contest there, JR, and Ron West, promoter Bob Polk, and wrestlers Corsica Joe, Sarah Lee, Dandy Jack Donovan, Frank Morrell, Billy Wicks. I don't know if you're familiar with any of these. Well, Nelson Royal, Rick Gibson, Mongolian Stomper, Jim White, Doug Furness, Don and Al Green, the original tag team that called themselves the Heavenly Bodies in the 70s. Ron Garvin was honored, Phil Hickerson, Bob Armstrong, Dick Slater, Bob Orton Jr., late manager Sam Bass. He was represented by his widow. Caldwell, his wife was given the plaque by Ron White, the greatest rival during his career. Deceased promoter John Kazana, represented by grandson Joey Kazana, an occasional jobber for the group, and then Ron and Don Wright. So, JR, is there anything that you can tell us about any of these gentlemen from your past?
Well, that is all were legends in that territory. Again, folks that are not students of the game or don't go back that far or don't care to study about the territories, you may not be quite aware of the clout that the Knoxville territory carried. If you're a top hand back in the day, you worked Knoxville at some point. And they drew a lot of money. That was a very viable territory. And then they got management issues and things of that nature. And things got unstable. It was I always appreciate the contributions made by those individuals, whether it be referees or promoters or talents. It was good. It was good to let those people be recognized by their hometown fans and their families and their friends and their fellow workers. So I like that kind of stuff. You know, Cornette somebody may have thought he went overboard with it because there were so many, but everybody that you mentioned was deserving.
Sure.
So, you know, but I like that type of thing. I like the fact that they got recognized and they haven't been recognized since or again. That may be oxymoronic.
Yeah. And you know what a real privilege and honor for you to kind of be able to, the timing to all work out for you to be there and be a part of all that, you know, and have that opportunity.
Well, you know, it's, I'm honored and blessed. I get the chances to do things like that. Nature Boy wanted me to call his last match and I wish I could have, but you know, as we discussed here on the show, without being a crybaby and making excuses, it's just hard. Travel's hard for me right now. And, I'm trying everything. I got now my new deal now is compression socks. And I discovered that that's a lifesaver. So, cause my left foot where all that aggravation has been going on, I had to go buy 2 pair of flip-flops because I just bought flip-flops hang around the house and wear here. But I want the ones where you put your toes between the little thing, you know, and
the little toe thong thing.
Yeah. I couldn't even wear them because my foot was so swollen and I didn't realize how swollen it was getting. So, that was the deal with Nate. You know, flying was not in the question. And the other thing about that deal too, and some people may think I'm crazy for saying this. I don't know why they would, but they might. You know, losing my train of thought.
Ric Flair's last match.
The Flair's last match. But here's the deal, man. You know, I've been really blessed in my career. I've got to call a lot of really cool matches. I didn't realize that my work was so prominent in the DX video that was on A&E.
Yes.
You know, the Shawn Michaels stuff and all these things. But I didn't feel it was right for Tony.
You had told me that awful. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, Tony's worked just as hard as me, if not harder. He's donated and dedicated, I should say, most of his professional life to the business. And so he's sitting there doing the whole damn show and working with David. And it was just, you know, I didn't feel like it was the right thing to do for Tony. I thought it was disrespectful. And for me to walk out there, big shot JR walking out there with his black hat and all that stuff, I just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. So that bothered me as well. But the main reason I didn't go was because of travel. And I was having a bad week. And, you know, I'd do anything for Conrad. He's been great to me and great to you and all of us that work with him. But I had a gut feeling it wasn't the thing to do. But and I know it's going to come off bad because you know, you don't say no to the Nate. Well, I had to, but you don't say no to the Nate, and so that's how it worked out. You know,
I'm glad you explained that about how you're feeling for Tony and David, that you wanted them to have that moment.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's makes more sense because there's been some that are like, well, he travels the Dynamite, he travels the Rampage.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I think you sharing where your heart was and wanting them to have that moment, then explain.
They needed a moment too.
That's
Nate's
right.
got his moment.
Yeah.
You know, and look, David Crockett and Tony Schiavone had as much to do with Nate's success in their line of work.
That's right.
As anybody, including myself or Bob Caudle or anybody else.
How good was it to see Bob Caudle, man, in the video documentary package?
Yeah, I love that. I love that guy. There's 2 guys that I can sincerely say and honestly say that I loved. And there's probably more, but bang off the top of my head. One was Gorilla Monsoon, he was like a deity, and Bob Caudle. When I first went to working for Crockett, I wasn't the most popular hire because I was going. You always, when somebody new comes in, you're going to take somebody else's spot, and it was challenging. But here's the deal, Bob. I rode with Bob. Everybody loved Bob, and I rode with Bob, and I got to, we talked of territory, we talked of personalities, and he helped me. So, and Monsoon did the same thing in WWE, same thing. And so sometimes you run across really good guys. I perceive that Tony Schiavone is a really good guy. David, really good guy.
Yeah.
And I saw no reason why I shouldn't let them have the
attention. Had to
yeah,
shift
why
to the
not,
black
man?
bloc.
And I listened. I watched it all on the Fight app.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Yep.
And I enjoyed it. And I'm glad everybody had success. And hopefully Conrad, when he gets through counting all his money, there'll be some left.
I'm sure he's still counting. That was a huge success. But listen, this has such a territory vibe to it. This whole show, you talked about Smoky Mountain. Now we're talking Bob Caudle. It's got all the feels. And I thought, man, you know what's really cool, JR, that's coming down the pike? This whole Tales from the Territory show that The Rock and $7 is producing.
Yeah.
And the Dark Side of the Ring guys are involved with. I know you're excited to see what that project's all about.
Well, we've already recorded one.
Yeah.
We may have, I don't know how much more we recorded, but we were there a long time, putting our time in. Jake Roberts and Ted DiBiase was there, and myself. It was fun. It was fun. And it's funny to see how people remember things. Everybody's got a version of a story.
Sure, I'm sure.
And it's kind of fun. So I knowing Rock and his people, he's got Brian Gewirtz there helping him out. And Brian's got a new book out.
I got to meet him, JR, last week. He recorded with Kurt Angle, and he was fantastic.
Brian's a good kid.
He is hilarious.
Yeah. Smart as hell. A lot of that stuff came right out of his head, man. Brian got lucky that he got Vince's ear.
Yeah.
Because then he didn't have to stand in line. He didn't have to, he didn't have to do anything ridiculous. Vince believed in Brian, and as he should.
Yeah.
And then more importantly, perhaps, is that The Rock believed in Brian. And Rock was a big supporter of Brian's work. And so for years and years, when you heard a Rock promo, Brian Gewirz's fingerprints are all over it. So he had a lot to do with Rock's success because he understood the character, and they got along well. They communicated well. So, but if you had a chance to check out Brian's book,
yeah,
what the hell's the name of it?
I got it. It's called "There's Just One Problem: True Tales from the Former One-Time Seventh Most Powerful Person in WWE." You can get it at Amazon.com or wherever you buy your books. I will. Yeah. I'll talk about it here. We're all part of the brotherhood. He came on Kurt Angle's show, and he did a lot for Kurt. I mean, he wrote all those fun vignettes for Kurt at the beginning of his career.
Right.
And he shared some stories. It was just a phenomenal hour and 20 minutes. I could listen to him talk for hours. He's so gifted.
Yeah. Smart kid, high IQ, student of the game, to say the very least. He was there for our recording of the Territory edition. Okay. Brian was. So, and it's always good to catch up with him and see him. We come from different cultures. He's a nice Jewish boy from Queens, I think.
Yes.
And
big Mets fan.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
So and he's a Jewish kid. Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
So we didn't have a lot. I mean, we started from scratch with our relationship. And sometimes I didn't agree with him at all. And more often than not, I was wrong. It's just that, I was kicking and screaming to stay in a one lane, and it was time to change lanes. And so Brian was really important to the company and to the fabric of the wrestling business in general, and how he presented the business and how the business was changing. Him trying to, it was like herding chickens with that during the Attitude Era. We had some outlaws.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many outlaws we had until I watched the documentary on A&E, which is kind of an interesting late night viewing for me on Sunday. I usually forget about it, but they repeated everything again. So I enjoy watching that stuff, and I think it's good for the business.
It is.
I really think it's good. I know it's a WWE project, and I'm no longer a WWE guy and all that good stuff, but I just look at it as overall a positive for the wrestling business. And what's that deal? The high tide raises all ships or something.
That's right.
I kind of believe in that.
Did you get to see the one on Lex Luger, the biography?
Yeah.
Man, that was so good too. And what he had.
It was good. And it gets aggravating when you read something online that says something to the along the lines of, well, I never thought Lex was very good.
Oh boy.
I don't know why. See, the whole story was about his life and living and not dying.
That's right.
And the Elizabeth tragedy. Also, it wasn't about the torture rack or the red, white, and blue and all that shit. So
it's a story of redemption. And
absolutely. Yeah. And he's doing well now.
He is.
I see he's getting a lot more publicity, and people are he's being interviewed and things of that nature. But he was always he's a unique cat, man. He really was a unique dude. He was he wasn't a product of the wrestling business. He wasn't. And he reminds me some of Goldberg.
Yeah.
They weren't born to be in the business, but they adapted and became huge stars within the business, no matter what.
And how he learned from his maturation from once he did the WCW stint, went to WWF, obviously had to learn the hard way. And then when he came back, how he developed for Eric Bischoff to be a really solid hand and how he grew up through that.
Yeah, absolutely. He always had the look.
Yeah.
We say this is a looks business. Well, if that's a true statement, and I truly believe it is, he had that. And he also he hung around with JJ and the other horsemen, Nate, Arn, Tully. And you can't help but learn things if you listen. And so I'm happy that he's alive, to be honest with you. And I thought the biography was very nicely done.
Yeah, very well done. Check out those biographies. They're all good. Kurt Angle's was phenomenal too. All of them. They're so well done. And a lot of them you get to see a lot of good old JR on there too. This has been very territory heavy show. I'm loving it. But I want to make sure, JR, we get to the rest of the fan questions because there are some.
Yeah, let's go.
So Yambag Jones is up next. He said, what does JR think about hair versus hair matches in general?
Well, it's got to be the final. Somebody's got to leave there bald. It's all about the storytelling. You lost your match, didn't you?
I lost my match a long time ago, JR.
Yeah, there you are. Sorry. You're all right. That's not the worst thing in your life that'll ever happen to you, losing your hair. I promise you. I hope it is, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't dislike them if they're built correctly. And that's the same answer I'd give you for a lot of things. But I believe that it's a hell of a story. It's a great blow off. It's got to be the blow off
to a great story.
Yeah. A long-term, well-told story that has a conclusion whereby the loser leaves bald, humiliated, embarrassed, and bald. And so therefore, it makes kind of common sense for those hair versus hair matches to be lost by the heel.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to see the heel get their head shaved. So.
Yeah. And react to such screaming and yelling and kicking. And
that's right. Brad Stanton's up next. How crazy were the crowd reactions to the Gangstas down there in the Deep South? Do you remember that?
Well, they had significant heat to the Gangstas. And because, I don't know if you noticed, but I would suggest we didn't see too many African-American fans in the stands at that show. So they already had the wrong kind of heat. The wrong kind of heat. and that can be a blessing or a curse. I personally believe that we know that we've outgrown that. We're way past that, and how the business has evolved. So I think that the all those things, well-told story, blow-offs, some things just don't need to be changed too much. And I give the same analogy about a DDT. Are today's wrestlers that use the DDT as a high spot, are they just not very good at it? Because they can't beat anybody with it. And that's an established finishing hold.
Yeah.
And so I have an issue with that along those same lines. Don't try to change tradition. Tradition doesn't need to be changed. But sometimes it looks like we try to change tradition, and I'm not really for that.
Right. Just you need to evolve execution, presentation, maybe a different story, but I'm with you. Why are we trying to make the DDT a setup move? I
don't know. I've never known.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bryant Haremza is up next, JR. He said, what was it like working with Les Thatcher as a broadcast partner? Also, did you have any other duties in Smoky Mountain, or were you just strictly a commentator?
Strictly a commentator. Happy to do that. I was, in kind of a liaison with communicating to the WWE office to help Corny out in that regard. I know that we helped him out. We paid transfer guys, and helped supplement their monies, as I recall. I may be wrong on that. I don't think so. I know I did some Smoky Mountain work and didn't get paid at all because Corny was in a tough spot, and cash flow was kind of dire. And so McMahon paid it. He paid me for working for Smoky Mountain. That's kind of how I kind of knew that I was going to be brought back to WWE. There was nobody angry or pissed off, or nobody got blackballed, or all those things. So, we all chipped in to help. It was for the good of the business. All those guys in that card got a nice payday for that show in Knoxville. So I thought I was doing something good for the wrestling business.
And you really enjoyed, I know from what you said, working with Les Thatcher as a partner.
Oh yeah, Les is so easy to work with. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's not trying to be a stand-up comedian. He's not trying to be, say crazy stuff just for the sensationalistic value that they may carry. Everything Les said that we heard on this show made sense. It's logical. So I enjoyed working with Les. He's a very fascinating conversationalist, and he's been around so long. And I say that with great respect, that he has such a legacy within the business. Anybody that can sit down and tell you stories about Buddy Rogers, you listen.
Sure.
You listen, because I want to learn more about those guys. I used to ask Sam Muchnick, what made Thez successful, things like that, because he could tell you, in his view, what made Lou Thez so successful. It was believable.
Yeah,
people believed in Lou.
And you had firsthand knowledge right there.
Yeah, and I loved it, and I used it. I used it in my talent relations work, and in many instances. So it was a fun journey in that respect.
All right, Matt Godfrey's up next, grilling JR. JR, how do you think Cornette would do if he was running a wrestling promotion today?
Well, he'd have to change a few things in regards to communicating with talent. I don't think Cornette teaches anything that would be off the grid. Everything fundamental soundness he has. That he's very stubborn, and he's much like Cowboy Bill. He's much like Ole, all stubborn. And they believe their way is not just the only way, but it's the only right way to get something done. So, but he'd be challenged, not because, again, of product knowledge, but maybe in communicating with some younger talents. That's all.
Makes sense.
And that would be up to him on how he wanted to address that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to change your mindset a little bit, or at least that would be my suggestion to him. But that's all you can do with him is suggest. He knows what he wants, and if he owns a company and he's writing the checks, I've got some that never were cashed. I remember selling one at an auction or something, or donating it for an auction. I think I made $300 for taping. Wasn't much.
And you donated it?
Well, I donated a lot of toward the end. In the beginning, I cashed some checks, but it just, I was trying to help Corny.
Sure.
Simple as that. And that's why when people say, I saw what Jim Cornette said about you. Look, I generally don't see it, but it sure as fuck don't bother me. Why would it bother me, Paul?
Right. At the end of the day, when you put your head down on the pillow, you know what you did to help him or whatever, you know, as we talk about these shows, what you did to help out this, whatever. And you can sleep peaceably.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Exactly. So it's just that we live in a society, especially today, that somebody always wonders, what's your agenda? Really, what are you thinking? What's the thought process here? Because people get skeptical of those that want to do good things for others. What is your agenda? What is your motive?
Right.
Always something. There's always the other shoe's got to drop. So what's really going on here?
Can't we just be genuine individuals anymore?
I don't know.
I know. You know,
it's daunting.
Yeah. Dylan's up next. He says, what's JR's favorite hair versus hair match?
Well, God, I don't know. Got to think.
I'll throw out a couple. I think about Boogie Woogie Man back with Paul Jones. I think about Kurt Angle getting shaved by Edge, a little bit more modern when he was using the razor the wrong way.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
McMahon getting his head shaved.
That probably was the most significant one, Paul.
There you go.
Because that happened at WrestleMania 23 in Detroit. That's the weekend that Lawler and I, Dusty Rhodes, others went to the Hall of Fame. So I would say that was the biggest one because it drew the most money.
Yeah.
It drew the most money. But with Austin in the ring and all that, Umaga, all that stuff, man.
It was the most
spectacle. And it happened at WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll say this from Vince. He took it like a man. No shortcuts.
Yeah. Cue ball all the way.
Yeah.
He did it.
So, I'm glad you brought that up because it's hard for me sometimes just to pull one out of the air.
Yeah.
But saying anything other than the Battle of the Billionaires would have been a bad mistake.
All right, Tyler Goodman's up next. Cornette is arguably my favorite podcast out there. He does, however, shit on the product presented more often than not. Do you think he's jaded or a smart businessman?
Oh, I think he's a smart businessman. Controversy creates cash. That's what Eric Bischoff says.
That's right.
And I believe him.
I agree.
And I believe him.
Yep. He knows what he's doing.
Exactly. It's Stern-esque.
Yes.
Get people talking. And they'll come back and listen some more or watch some more, whatever the case may be. So, I'm a big fan of Cornice in that respect. He knows how to milk the crowd, work the crowd, just like a heel manager.
Yeah.
He's really good at it. So that's why I say people can't believe that we haven't talked in months. I don't know if we talked this year. But at no time during this period of time was I ever angry at him. I don't feel like that's my place right now. I'm in a different, hey, look, man, I'm 70 years old battling cancer.
That's right.
Okay. And I got a great job, the best job I've ever had, in my opinion. I love going to work. I wish I was healthy so I didn't have to bite a stick sometimes getting, boarding the plane. But I'm blessed. So the last thing I'm going to do is start nitpicking bullshit. I don't need it.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Any of us need it, ladies and gents. We really don't. I noticed my light came back on.
Your light did. You look like you're getting a sunburn now.
I look like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
You do, man. It's washing you out. But no, you're absolutely right, man. Life's too short and it's too complicated as is. Why create more drama than we need?
No reason. No reason to.
We're on the same page. Final question, Matthew Williams. Why do you think there are so many in wrestling that dismiss SMW as a failed promotion and not a success? Given that Cornette was able to start a promotion when the wrestling business as a whole was struggling and get someone the caliber of Rick Rubin as a major investor backer of the project, seems like a pretty major accomplishment. Plus, unlike ECW, you never hear SMW talent talk about not getting paid. Just wanting to know Jim's thoughts on that.
Oh, man. Well, you know, they both are two different stories, quite frankly. You know, ECW had WWE and Vince to bail them out to some degree and create some cash flow, get some guys paid. I hired a lot of guys from ECW because I was a fan of their work, and they needed to work. And so, you know, the Dudleys are, you know, a great hire, I thought. They did real well in WWE for many years. Great contributors, Hall of Fame guys. You know, Taz would have had a great run in WWE if he had not gotten injured.
Yeah. Torn
pecs or torn triceps or whatever. I'm not sure what appendage was fatally hurt, but that was a terrible break for him. Because he was not injury prone, just bad luck. And then he didn't have a large gallery of Taz supporters. Even some of the guys from ECW. Yeah, all these little territories had their issues.
Sure.
Little locker rooms. So I'm a big believer that you know, we did well with the ECW guys. And look at in the Taz situation, especially. I always enjoyed working with Taz. I do Dynamite with him now. Case, and we'll do a pay-per-view, whatever. So I enjoy working with Taz. He's smart. He's prepared. He's got good broadcast skills, timing. Because folks got to understand, when we're out there doing Dynamite, there's four of us. Four of us at the booth doing live TV with no net. And that is challenging.
Yeah.
And you have three play-by-play guys of the four. Excalibur's a play-by-play guy. Shivani, longtime play-by-play guy, and me. And then, of course, Taz has always been an analyst and does a great job. So I'm a fan of what I'm doing. And I'm a fan of the four-man team. Can be a little, pardon me, can be a little much, but that's what we're assigned to do. So we go out and make it work.
So just to wrap up Matt's question, though, do you think that SMW? What's your final prognosis?
Well, it wasn't a failure
as a whole. Yeah,
it wasn't a failure because, again, here's the thing: they established a business. They put people to work. They produced some very unique television. So I don't think it was a failure whatsoever. It was underfunded. And that put them behind the old proverbial 8-ball. And somehow or another, you had to turn your head this way to get past the 8-ball or go over here and do it over here, whatever. Tough hand. And that's the one thing, that's the failure of a lot of companies. They're undercapitalized. Yeah. They don't have the money to operate. And Corny was in that situation.
Well, JR, next week, we're discussing the 20th anniversary of SummerSlam. That's right. It's 2002, the 15th annual SummerSlam. It featured the crowning of Brock Lesnar. He's the new undisputed champion. His match against The Rock. So you got Brock versus The Rock. You got Shawn Michaels making his in-ring return, taking on Triple H in that unsanctioned street fight, which was...
That was a great match, too, by the way.
My God, it is fantastic. I'm right there with you. I've watched it multiple times. Huge fan of that one. You got Test versus Undertaker. Benoit, he's going to defend the IC title against Rob Van Dam. I mean, this is loaded. Eddie Guerrero versus Edge. Flair versus Jericho. Kurt Angle opens the show against Rey Mysterio. What a card SummerSlam 2002 was.
Maybe the best ever. The best ever. And when you look at all the Hall of Fame guys that are competing and performing, it's pretty astonishing. So I really look forward to talking to that one. I don't remember any match on that card being a dog.
No.
I never heard any barking.
It's loaded with talent, loaded with great matches.
Yeah.
So look forward to that one. Guys, listen, check it out, adfreeshows.com. You get this early, ad-free, and man, there's all kinds of events. We talked about Brian Gewirtz. Not only was he on the Kurt Angle show, but Conrad got to sit down with him and do kind of a one-on-one bonus event with Brian last week. You can check that out, ad-free shows there, as well as other bonus content. So check it out. JR, before we get out of here this week, though, we got to talk about some JR's BBQ.com and all the fantastic seasonings and sauces. And I know that our listeners are placing their orders, buddy. This is prime grilling season.
Yeah, Venice has been good, and we're blessed and thankful for it. JR's BBQ.com is how you find it. We've got a nice little website, easy to navigate. But Venice has been brisk. Stephen Link manages that site and manages that end of the business. And, I know that we've been very busy. And I think people are discovering that not only is grilling healthier than frying something, it tastes better more often than not. So I'm getting ready to go back to Oklahoma in a few days, try to get back for some football games when they start. I think my schedule is going to conflict with one of my games, I think. But nonetheless, I'll be at wrestling and doing what I get paid for. So
there you go.
It should be good.
Football season. I'm excited for football season.
Me too. My Sooners are going to be pretty decent, I think. They're awfully optimistic. New staff, new head coach, new quarterback, new everything. So I'm really excited about that, how they're going to do. But, there's not much things more fun than sitting on the back porch or the patio or wherever and enjoying grilling, bringing your buddies over, getting that cold beer and cooking. And, I'm so blessed. I got this 55-inch TV on my patio. Yeah, it's a little crazy. I don't know what
sounds like a good time, buddy.
I don't know what Jan would say if I was getting that delivered by Best Buy, but I should be all right with it.
Yeah.
But I love watching football outside.
Yeah.
Sit there in my little covered thing, and the grill's right there, and watching football and grilling.
Food. Yeah, smell the food on the grill. You got the football on. The pool's right there. And what a great time, man.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm just not there enough, and I'm going to make that. I got to change that philosophy. The great thing about my schedule at ECW at AEW, is I can do Dynamite on Wednesday, and then fly to Oklahoma on Thursday. Get there and get settled in, and then the tailgating starts on Thursday night, and so then I got Thursday night, and of course Friday is night before the game. Everybody's out doing something, seeing your friends and all this. I just have a blast there. Then Saturday's game day. Then Sunday I kind of just get my act back together, get my second wind, and get ready to take off the next week for another AEW trip.
Well, you can sit down in front of your big screen at your house and then watch your Jaguars, who you're sporting loud and proud there. You got the Jaguar hat, you got the shirt on. I love it.
I had a good time. Tony Khan took Raphael Morphy and I to Canton. He flew us over on his plane and to watch the Steelers. No, it wasn't the Raiders. Raiders. And the Jags.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun. It was a lot of fun, actually. Going to the hall. That game was a game I'd watched since I was a little kid. They played that game in a high school stadium. It's a nice high school stadium, but it's a high school stadium nonetheless. It's got a unique feel. And then we flew back to, I think, Grand Rapids after the game. Was there 25 minutes.
The Battle of the Belts.
Yeah.
And Rampage.
So it's all good. So it's
you got to see Tony Baselli get inducted into the Hall.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
He came to the suite. Mr. Khan had a suite for everybody. It was great. I watched the game with Doug Peterson's wife. Nice lady. He's going to do really well for our team. He's stable, smart. He's won a Super Bowl. A lot of good things for him as compared to Urban Meyer, who was a cartoon.
Yeah.
He sure got off the radar quick, didn't he?
Didn't he? You haven't heard a word since.
Nothing. Nada. So, but check out the site, jrsbbq.com. Great gift ideas. We'll put together something for you. You get Steven on the phone or email, whatever. We're going to make you happy, and we can make things work there because it's our deal.
There you go.
So I'm behind on signing books, but one of the reasons I'm going back to Oklahoma is to catch up on things like that, sign the books and things for the folks that have been waiting. It's just hard to take that extra plane flight, man, when you're in my situation right now. So, but like I said earlier, the main thing, I'm cancer free and I'm feeling better.
Good. Well, listen,
and I'd like to think my work is indicative of my attitude. I feel good and I feel blessed and lucky. So, off we roll, buddy. Off we roll.
You're still sounding good on the call, just like you did when CM Punk returned. It was goosebumps. So, man, keep crushing it, buddy.
I kind of jumped out of my skin on that one.
That was
the thing about that. I knew
you to do. That's what we need you to do. That's the JR we grew up on.
Punk was in the building, as I mentioned earlier. We didn't have a lot of. We chatted just in general. How you feeling and blah blah blah. I didn't know when he was coming out, and I sure as hell didn't know what he was going to do.
Yeah,
that's so much better.
Yeah,
and I look at announcers sometimes back in the day, and they seem like they're either so insecure with their prep or their skill set that they got to know more. I got to know more. When's he coming out? And I just believe it's better to not know and react organically and in a real way. Agreed. So that's going to be my style till I hang it up. They say, "Oh, JR didn't make it. He done." So
he gone.
He gone.
Yep. Well, listen, we're gone. We're done. This is the end. JR, it's been a great week. This show's been fun. Love going back to the old school stuff. And we did it with some Smoky Mountain, buddy. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. We're going to be back next week. It could be me, could be Conrad. We'll see. But JR is going to be here at SummerSlam 2002 on behalf of the voice of wrestling, Jim Ross. This is Paul Bromwell. We'll see you right here next week on Grilling JR.
And Boomer Sooner, everybody. Football's here. Let's eat some barbecue. Isn't it time you get your push into the dream home that you've always wanted? The team at Buy with Conrad is helping make home ownership easy. You don't need perfect credit, and you may not even need a down payment. If you're ready to do some barbecuing at your next home, hurry over to buywithconrad.com now.